This is George Sicalius, and this is Sprint 5. Um, so I'm gonna start with the camera manager. All that's really new with it is I turned it into a multi-tin. The Each scene has its own camera manager. It just handles like every other manager. Um, so yeah, that's really all that's new with that. Um, so Time Manager is responsible for handling time. I have it set up as a singleton. Um, so every frame process time is called, which just sets the current time. It's connected to the freeze time script, so it takes into account if the game was stopped or frozen or not. Um, so yeah, that's that. Um, the way I have it set up, the only thing that if something needs time, then it has to go through the time manager. It doesn't touch the engine's the actual time that the engine gets. Um, so actually in the engine update, so yeah, it just passes in the current system time, um, and then within the time manager, it gets the current time, the previous time, the current time taking into account the amount of time frozen, and that's it. As of right now, the only thing really using the time manager is the alarmable classes. That's inputable. This is alarmable. So alarmable when registering, actually assigning the time, and in alarmable manager, checking to see if a alarm has triggered. Um, that's it. Um, so yeah, I guess I can demonstrate the time manager as well as scene. Oh, and actual game progress. So I have some stand-in enemies. They're working on a really simple finite state machine. So I can fire. I think I had this set up last week too. Um, then if I fire and then freeze the frame, I think the bullets are set up to trigger after 5 seconds. So it's been more than 5 seconds. If I restart the frame, they're still gonna go as long as they were supposed to, not taking into account the time frozen. Um, so yeah, and then I can also change scenes. I can demonstrate that now. So just to help me out, for I think all of my scenes, I just made a small little uh, scene change object. It's responsible for doing is checking to see if just checking for input. If it gets input, then it's gonna change to the next scene. Um, so yeah, this is so on a key press submits a scene change. The way I have the scene changing set up with a command pattern. If I go back, so this is the actual command which sets the scene. Uh, so I have the command pattern set up in the scene manager, uh, rather than the current scene. Um, so in order to get this work, to make this work, I had to I had to I put the broker inside of the update call. Um, with this setup, I don't think it's not that much better than having a conditional. So yeah, I probably need to change that. I know there was some talk with some people about instead of using a command pattern for changing the scenes, using a strategy pattern or something like that, of that sort. Um, so yeah, deregisters the scene actually in the so it calls set next scene, which terminates the scene, does one final cleanup for the brokers on the current scene, just to clear up all the deregistrations and that stuff, and then deletes the scene, and then sets the next scene, and that's it. And then this is the new scene. Then if I press P again, it'll switch to a different scene. Then switches back to the first scene. And yep. And that's scene management. I believe the last thing that we have to talk about is whatchamacallit, object handling, deletion, deregistration, well, yeah, that stuff. So I was actually having a bit of a problem with that this week. So as of right now, I'm stuck between like two ideas. Either I do something similar to Teal, where instead of worrying about actually deleting the object, I just call mark for destroy, and then all of the deletion and deregistration will just be taken care of behind the scenes. The user will still have to define, like, in destroy, like, what has to be deregistered upon destroying it, but they never, like, call delete on the object. The other way I was thinking about going about it is just saying, like, to hell with mark for destroying that stuff, and just put all of the memory management on the user. They have to call delete, and then instead of having a destroy method, they just put all of their deregistrations, that stuff, inside of delete. They can still have you can still, like, just submit enable an object to a scene or disable an object to a scene, but yeah, they just also delete it themselves. So yeah, so actually, like, with deleting, with taking care of, like, stuff created with factories and using enabling and disabling, I was running into a couple problems with that, which eventually led me to have one method call that clears all of the actives located in terminate, and then having a call within the actual deletion of the scene, which actually terminates the factory. So actually I can show that. So enemy. So ideally, I'd like to just have one call that I just call, like, terminate once on the factory, and that'll take care of all the actives and all of the inactives. It'll delete them, deregister them, all of that. But no, the way I have it set up. Okay, so CameraManager. Okay, so when I'm terminating the scene, I'll terminate on I call clear active on the enemy factory. Which that does is it just submits the exit for all of the currently active game objects. So then in the next frame, or whenever the next time the broker is processed, then that's when private recycle is called, and when this actually, let me pull that up. So when that happens, scene exit's called, it deregisters everything, and then it recycles it, and then it puts it inside of the my pool. And then within the delete, it actually deletes the object. So yeah, I just don't like how I have to. This whole process takes, I think, 3 frames, and that just creates a whole lot of problems. Because yeah, at first I have to submit just to. Yeah, I have to submit just to submit exit to submit deregistration for all my ubbles, and then after that, I can then delete the object. I just feel like that's stretching out too much stuff it's stretching stuff that should be handled in like 1 or 2 frames over 3 frames, and that's just been creating a lot of problems. So yeah. So yeah, that's all I have this week. Yeah.